you know, journalism is a serious business, and when we don't take it seriously in terms of the product we offer, you know, the future is threatened for us. To me, journalism is dealing with what's important for people to know. Now, once it gets crowded on the celebrity front with news that's simply entertaining to know about, you got a problem. And you know, we're constantly over the last 15 to 20 years, as the media empires have expanded and the demand for profits has increased on the part of some media operations, the line is really blurred on that front. Now, we as the public broadcaster are, you know, if we're going to lean one way, it's going to be on the news is important, and we deal with what's important for you to know. We can't ignore the fact that people also, you know, the world's not going to end when the show is over. You know, you're still going to wake up tomorrow, and sometimes if you get constantly bombarded with news that's either bad or is difficult to handle and understand, you're going to sort of give up on everything. So, you know, you try to find a mix, but still at the beginning of the program, the weighty issues where you really spend your resources and your time, no matter whether you're sitting, standing, whatever your set looks like, what's important is you're dealing with issues that are important.
I'm sitting now.
Yeah. I actually, Peter, wasn't going to mention the chairs, but since I have this opening, I actually want to ask you about the show in a minute, but I just did want to follow up on Barack Obama. You did interview him.
I did.
I assume that he has a presence that is astonishing. Is that so?
No, it's nothing special. No, listen, it was great. It was in the White House, and it was a special day. It was about 3 or 4 weeks after he just got the presidency. It was the first time that the CBC, in its glorious history dating back to the 1930s, had ever had a one-on-one sit-down interview in the White House with the President of the United States. So this was a big deal. But he's, he was a wonderfully engaging guy. He was very kind to me. He walked into the room and he stuck out his hand and he said, "Peter, it's great to have you here at the White House." And I thought, he knows me. I'd actually seen the guy whisper in his ear as he read the That guy's name's Peter.
Okay.
We did the interview. He was terrific. You know, he handled all the issues. He seemed to be on top of the Canadian file, which was amazing considering he's right in the middle of the whole stimulus bill thing. And when it was over, just to tell you what kind of guy he is, they rushed him out of there because he had to catch a plane to go to Arizona or something. They rushed him out of the room, and we were standing there, you know, wow, just interviewed the president, wasn't that great? Talked to my crew about what it felt like, and White House people were starting to, you know, clean up the room and try and hustle us out of there, and like 3 or 4 minutes had gone by, and he suddenly, who comes back in the room but Barack Obama? He comes in and he says, "Peter, I got somebody you got to meet." And I'm thinking, what? He's a big guy, first of all. I'm 6 foot, he's about 6'2" or 6'3".
Yeah, and dreamy, is he not?
Yeah. That's what my producer, Samira Hussein, said after it was over. I looked at her and I said, "What do you think? What do you think? Did we get what we wanted?" And she looked at me and said, "Oh, he's so gorgeous." Anyway, he comes back in the room and says, "I got somebody you got to meet." And this guy comes in after him who's about 6'8". And he points at him, he says, "This is Marvin Nicholson. He's from Victoria." He said, "He's my Canadian on staff here." It turned out he does travel arrangements or something. Anyway, he says, "Marvin wanted to meet you, so I brought him back here." He comes in and Marvin Nicholson stands there and puts out his hand and he says, "My mother loves you."
And so it goes. I'm going to invite people to line up at this microphone here. If you have a question for Rex or Peter, please do that. While we're doing that, Peter, just quickly, worst interview ever, I believe you say in your book is?
Margaret Thatcher. She was
piece
tough.
of work. Was she not? Yes.
She was actually on A book tour. I'd interviewed her a couple of times when she was Prime Minister, but usually by remote, and everything went fine. You stick just to your topic. She had her first book out after coming out of office, and I wanted to talk to her about the Falklands War portion of the book, because I'm always fascinated by leadership. It's one of the things Rex and I always talk about, and I wanted to try and understand, what goes through a leader's mind during a time of war. And so I asked her a number of questions on this, and every question I asked, she'd throw back in my face saying, well, you obviously never read the book. And I had read the book. And it just, the interview just basically went into the tank, and it didn't do very well. And but after it was over and they were turning the lights off, she leaned forward to me and she said, Peter, would you like me to sign your book? I actually thought of a number of other things she could do with the book.
Okay, microphone's there. Rex, you say in one of your pieces that, you spent a lot of time railing against Madonna and all these people in popular culture who you don't like, so we won't go there. But then you say that the person that you admire so much, who in fact you think ought to have been Governor General, is Don Cherry.
Well, we couldn't get Keith Richards. I did that for a reason. I was like applying to a pressure point. I hate to say this in the company of people who've been over to Ottawa last week on similar endeavors. But Cherry is an interesting phenomenon. He is provocative. He's about 76, 77 right now. Anybody who knows him knows that outside of the Hockey Night in Canada areas, he also does a tremendous number of humanitarian and charitable works. He does them without advertisement and without self-exhibition. And of all the people, maybe with the exception of the Chancellor of Mount Allison, he's known from coast to coast, from 2-year-olds to 9-year-olds, and it's a bit peculiar that as he goes into the later autumn of his life, that he hasn't received a single recognition of official status from anybody.
But he has the Order of Canada, doesn't he?
No, he has not received. This is
really?
the point. Don Cherry seems to be almost a singular exception. It may be because his public manner to some is a little bit too overt, but very quickly. I came back from a checkup in Montreal. A friend of mine was on another plane, and his father was ill. He sees Don Cherry in the business class lounge, and he passes a note to the steward to bring it up to Mr. Cherry. Would he sign in all caps so he could give it to his ailing father? Steward comes back. This guy's 50 years old, by the way. He's carried up to the business class. Cherry sits him down. They spend an hour. Not only does he sign the book, he gets some shirts. He writes a handwritten message. And this is a stranger. And then next night on Hockey Night in Canada, he gives a wave and a mention of some poor sick character down in Long Harbour, Newfoundland. Now he may be bitter and he may be provocative, but that shows a wonderful emblem, a wonderful disposition of human nature. And I don't understand how someone if we're talking celebrity of a Canadian who is a Canadian, I don't know who outclasses Cherry in that department, that he simply goes by. So I did it that way, mainly to catch the attention of people who haven't given him anything besides that.
Yeah.
And I think it worked.
Yeah, it did, because I'm one of those people. So, good for you. Okay, question?